Hello and welcome to this week's review on Dragon Ball Daima. This week I'm reviewing the episode titled Gomah. We kick off this review, as we always do in these reviews, by talking about the positives and the headline positives. All the big things I enjoyed about this particular episode. I thought the action was spectacular. Surprise, surprise. I liked the light character development moment, and I respected the character development that we got with Arensu, such that it was. Now the big question, of course, is does this episode break with the tradition in this series where you have an episode named after a character, and then for that character to do next to nothing within the episode they're named after? Well, I mean, technically Gomah is here, and he does things. We don't really get much of a deeper exploration into his character, and his role in this is to act more like the big RPG final boss man, so, we'll say the jury is out, and let me know whether you think this breaks the tradition or not in the comment section down below. I have to say that we are going to do this review slightly in reverse. We're going to kick off with the things I mentioned the last, and then we'll talk about the action at the end of it. So, this is an episode where we finally learn exactly what Arensu's motivations for doing all of this is in the first place. She wants to rule the demon realm. Something which at this point we could have pretty well accurately guessed, but hey, we get it finally confirmed to us. Something that we kind of established maybe a good, I don't know, about 18 or so episodes ago at this point. Only she wants to do more than just rule it. She wants to make it powerful and scary. She wants to turn it into seemingly every depiction of a demon realm that you've ever seen in every kind of scripture or piece of fiction. Okay, sure, I mean, sure, whatever. You do that. You make it so. I'm sure that will work for you. It will not backfire in any way, shape, or form. Now, to be honest, I don't recall if she then also said, "Oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take over the other realms," or anything like that. I don't fully remember that, but given how no one seemed at all alarmed by the fact that she said something like that, I'm going to guess that she didn't, and her main concern is just take over the demon realm and just be the big evil demon queen person because that's who she wants to be. Look, I mean, it's not great, it's not revolutionary, and it's not quite to the level of depth that I would have liked at this point, but still, it's a lot more motivation than her younger brother, whose whole reason for his heel turn last week was, "It's in my nature," which, yeah, last week's episode at this point, I think it's fair to say that everyone, whether they like this series or not, thinks that was a bit of a bum note, but regardless, it is what it is, and I do feel, however, that Arensu, regrettably, from this moment on, is going to be on the sidelines for the remainder of much of all of this. Maybe she'll get involved in the fight somehow, do a little bit of a magic thing, maybe do something to empower Do and Ku to give them the opportunity with which to fight and save the day or something. There might be a fusion thing with her and Degasu to tip the balance, or I don't know, maybe she gets turned into a chocolate bar by Majin Buu or something, but I don't think she's going to contribute much of anything from this point on because, yeah, that's just kind of where she is now. She's going to sit in the background and just comment on the action like every other character that's been introduced in this series thus far, which is regrettable because she was the only new character that we had that seemed to have, well, any real depth to her whatsoever to make her a fascinating character, but you know, we'll see. I mean, hey, maybe this isn't the last we see of her. Maybe all these characters will come back when Super 2 comes along, but we'll soon see about that. The big twist with this episode, however, is that the Medi-Bugs are gone, including the one that's supposed to give fusion, which, you know, let's be blunt, the reason they're doing this is so the whole bit where they have to eat the fusion bug will end up happening later on. That's just the pure length and breadth of it. It's been done to set that up for later on so that we can have the moment where, oh, we gotta fuse, we gotta do the thing, we gotta get our powers together, and then, oh, I don't want to do the dance. Well, we do have these things, because if the fusion thing comes along, Vegeta's not going to want to do the dance because he thinks it's lame. He's not going to do the thing with the earrings because he didn't want to go through the process of splitting again. So the only option that they have left will be the Medi-Bugs, and think, bugs, and then things will go from there. Though I do know that there's going to be a lot of idiots online after this episode has gone out. Probably you've already seen them commenting online and making their videos, talking about how this show has now ruined the promise of the new fusion thing. I can't believe it. They're subverting expectations in a way that's lame. I can't believe it. Because obviously all the people that I have a disagreement with this show talk like Yajirobe, but still, you get the idea that it's become apparent to me that there's a worryingly large number of fans and broadcasters on this site that don't know what tension is, let alone how to build it. And this is just going to be a moment where they're going to bitch and moan at the fact that, oh, they've dropped the fusion bug things because apparently protagonists in a television program or any story for that matter can't make a mistake or have something bad happen to them, and everything that happens has to happen with mechanical certainty or something along those lines. But to be fair, this again is all happening just to build tension within the episode itself. We get the moment where Vegeta asks for those Medi-Bug things. Oh, I haven't got them, I've lost them, and that creates tension in that scene, so that then it sets up for Goku to turn Super Saiyan 3, which is something we'll discuss later on in a few moments' time. I will admit, in fairness, and I probably should have said this before, slagging off a certain section of the fan base, there is still a part of me that is worried that this whole fusion thing won't happen at all, let alone a fusion between Do and Ku, or anybody else for that matter. And this might well be a subversion. Oh, you thought that Goku and Vegeta were going to have a super cool new fusion form, but there isn't, and that's not gonna happen. And that maybe if there is a fusion using the weird fusion bugs, it'll end up being between Do and Ku, so you get Majin Dooku, because... well, I was going to say, do we really want to be referencing the prequel trilogy? But at this point, people have decided the prequel trilogy is good now, so what do I end up knowing with all of this? But still, I think if we don't get some kind of fusion with Goku and Vegeta by the end of this, that might be a subversion too far. I mean, we've already got the comic relief villain now being turned into the big bad, and I think that, well, to be blunt, what I've seen online, that whole idea has gone down like a fart in a crowded lift for some fans, so having yet another subversion where the whole fusion thing just ends up becoming a great blue balling exercise for the audience isn't going to help things a lot, but... hey, like I say, I think this is something that will still come into practice, come into focus later on, and that this is just a mechanism so that we can have a great moment towards the end of this episode, which we'll talk about shortly in this review. Besides this, of course, I liked the light character moments that we got here and there. To be blunt, there isn't much to talk about beyond just the main action sequence, because that is the focus of this episode. The lighter character moments we got were fun. The stuff with Majin Buu was cute and adorable, just seeing him wandering about trying to chase the butterfly was fun and nice for what it is. The little scene where Never is trying to hint to the Tamigami to help defeat Gomah was fun too. I will admit, there was a part of me that was wondering if this moment might be his heel turn moment, that, oh, now everyone's gone and now all this stuff's kicked off, is going to say to the Tamigami, right, this is the moment, this is where we strike, I want you to go up there, I want you to get the third eye and get the Dragon Ball so that I can rule the demon world. But that doesn't end up happening. I think that by this point, any hint that he might have been evil is largely gone. I'm not saying that I'm keeping that as an open theory, but I'm still saying is it's still a possibility, remote as it may end up being at this point. On a similar related note, I will just say is that I think that at this point, thinking that Gomah isn't going to be the big evil villain of all this is just copium right now. Oh sure, in the end of all of this, he might not die. This might be a curse of the blood rupees thing, where he turns back to normal in the end, and he survives it all, but he can't be the Demon King anymore, and he just gets demoted. He has to get a job somewhere, probably working in the local supermarket, whatever. And he spends his days living in some shotgun shack on the other end of the world, and reluctantly asks himself, how did I get here? Before he then goes off to do his job, same as it ever was. I mean, we still have a few episodes left to go, but I think 3 episodes is a bit too narrow a time frame to just having a sudden last minute here's the new villain kind of thing, unless somehow, some way there's going to be an extra handful of episodes towards Easter, which at this point I really don't seem to be the case. And again, it feels like copium for people that are hoping this thing would go even further, unless there's just like some bonus movie they're going to do, an OVA, which I really don't think there's going to end up being. Because let's face it, we have 3 episodes left. The next episode, given the title, is going to involve some kind of new power being unlocked or discovers, and this is going to start turning things in our hero's favour. The episode after that, the penultimate one of this series, will end up having a moment where it looks like Gomah is now starting to turn ahead, and now he's starting to pull ahead of things, and then this feeling of, oh no, even despite this new power, we can't defeat him! And then in the final episode, our heroes will get the win, go home, everyone will turn back to normal, and then maybe the episode is going to end with a tease for the start of Super, with Beerus starting to stir and then wake up. well, he won't do, because I think it's still a few years off from when that's supposed to happen. And then maybe, just maybe, it ends with a bit more of a tease for Dragon Ball Super 2, whatever they're going to end up calling it. Not like, oh, here's Vegeta, Frieza Black or anything, but it'd just be a case of, like I said before, you could easily have a scene where Goku's just telling this story to Pan as a bedtime story, and that's your connection to the stuff that's coming God only knows where. We'll soon see where all of that. Another character moment that I did enjoy involving Gomah was the moment where he started to get really pissy about the fact that the fight was destroying his castle. I mean, it does feel as though the whole thing where he created the arena should have been something he did after this rather than before it, because then it would at least give them somewhere else to fight. Then his crib wouldn't end up getting smashed about in the way that he ends up doing so. But of course, when all that stuff's kicked off, and I'm going to saw this, what would ultimately end up becoming the arena that they're going to fight in, start to form, there was a part of me that was starting to get flashes of the post Man of Steel Zack Snyder Superman movies. Well, you know, in Man of Steel, Superman spends a good chunk of the final act just murdering tens of thousands of people in collateral damage as he's fighting Zod, and then every movie thereafter, whenever they wanted their big, gratuitous, masturbatory action sequences, you had to have the thing of, oh, when the fight's starting in the industrial sector, and there's no one around! Just to make sure no one would get upset by the fact that millions of people were killed off like it was nothing at all. Though I suppose if you want a more topical reference for all of this, it reminds me of the Blue Ocean dub from way back when, the Canadian dub, where they went out of their way to eliminate any moments where civilian casualties happened. Like, you got the bit of when Vegeta and Nappa first land and they blow up that building, and Nappa just says, "Hey, it's a real shame it's a Sunday, otherwise there'd be loads of people working in there." And the whole bit of, oh no, they destroyed the cargo robot. You get the idea. It kind of felt like a case of, okay, this castle's surrounding a village of some sorts, and we can't have our heroes blasting people left and right, otherwise all these innocent people get killed. What do we do? Let's create an arena and go from there. I get it, it's fine. But still, it did kind of make me laugh, possibly unintentionally. I will say, and as I said towards the start of this episode, and for many, many reviews now, and at this point, I think at this current juncture, we are into the point of this is just a fact of matter. I think the action is just spectacular. It has a great spectacle to it, which, yes, spectacular, you get the idea, but in this episode especially, this is what Dragon Ball fight should look like, whether it is in original Dragon Ball, whether it is in Z, whether it is in Super, GT, or anything thereafter. How it is presented, how it is directed, the cinematography of it, the fluidity of the camera movements. It is just spectacular, and it gives you a sense of being right there within the heat of battle in a way that I have not seen with Dragon Ball as a series really since the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie from a few years back. I still think that possibly pound for pound is the best action, at least in the mold that we've had with Z, but this, for what it is, as far as television stuff is concerned, I think this is certainly some of the best stuff that we end up seeing. The opening action that we saw where Goku was fighting Do was just brilliant. It felt like throughout this series I made comments and crass references to how certain fights devolved in Z, how you went from these fights in original Dragon Ball and the early half of Dragon Ball, which felt more martial arts focused, it felt more physical, felt a lot more visceral, to then in the second half of it, particularly from the midway point of the Cell games onwards, where it's a lot of just characters blinking about the place and throwing arms and throwing laser beams and it feeling rather weightless. This week we get all the flicking around and throwing laser beam stuff, but there feels as though there's weight and an impact to it. And the fight between Goku and Do has this, I know it might seem like a bit of a joke, but an elasticity to it, of how these two fighters are having to go against each other and how they're having to think around themselves, how they have to think about their own physicality and the physicality of the person that they are fighting to make the best of it. And it creates this sequence of events that's just thrilling to behold. And I no doubt that there will be people now debating and arguing, okay, if these two fighters fought at this particular moment, which one would have been the winner in the end of it? And that's a great debate to have because of just how well it's put together. And this is then continued on throughout the rest of the episode, particularly towards the end of it, where you get that great fight where Gomah's fighting off everyone around him, and just the way that it's put together and presented. Look, I can't be the only one that thought, right, this is how the fight with Jiren in Super should have looked. Like, this, the way that Gomah is presented here, he's presented as this powerful force of nature, which is what Jiren was supposed to be, and Jiren has been hyped up to be within the fan base. So when I eventually got to that point within the Super, I was just largely unimpressed by what I saw, apart from the whole, oh, he's glowing a shade of silver that is spooky looking, and in the context of modern Dragon Ball, oh, because the special effects around him looks cool, that means he's powerful. But here we get that sense of power that Gomah has. Okay, sure, if the two of them were to fight, Gomah would lose easily, but that doesn't matter in the here and now, because this is what Jiren's fight should have been. This is what his combat within Dragon Ball Super should have been like. The way that it's all presented, this is just Dragon Ball Manifest. This is its absolute best perfectness. It is just so brilliantly put together that it feels like an evolution of everything that we have had before with Dragon Ball. This does not feel like business as usual. It does not feel like Super, which felt like it was doing so much to try and capture Z, but I would argue the lesser half of Z. This is doing it, at least as the action is concerned, going, okay, what's the stuff that people loved about Dragon Ball? What is the things that people loved about those fight sequences? Let's take everything that worked and improve everything that didn't work and just tie it all together, and we get something that just looks brilliant, and I just think it's amazing. I will admit that this review is ultimately going to be on the shorter side, because there's only so many ways that you could say the action is fantastic in an action episode that's almost exclusively centered around the action, but it is. Though with that said, of course, in the interest of balance, let us get into the negatives. And tangentially related to the action, I will just say that the integration of CGI has felt rather lacking in this particular episode. I think that how it is put into it just feels rather lame. Now, I understand that for people who've been following my reviews for quite some time, this is a particular bugbear of mine, but with this episode in particular, there are certain moments of it where it just feels so out of place and just feels so lacking. It just feels conspicuous. Like, it's a lot of it comes down to the timing and the pacing of those moments. Like when you have the bit where the camera's panning around the little arena thing that Gomah creates for the first time, there's this slight pause before the camera starts moving, which makes it feel as though, okay, this is the animation loading up, and now this is, oh, it's all rendered, and now you can start moving it. When for the sake of a couple of seconds, it probably look a bit more impressive, even though, again, it has the distinct CGI feel to it. I think in certain moments is the pacing of it. It is that weird thing that we keep seeing where CGI animation is they reduce the frame rate to try and make it match with the hand-drawn stuff. But for my money, they don't quite ever get it right, so the CGI stuff always ends up looking very choppy, whereas this stuff that is running at a lower frame rate just frankly doesn't. And there probably is a better way making the two of them mesh better in a way that isn't just, okay, just do the CGI stuff in whatever animation pace and just work with that. There has to be a way in getting the time of it right. I don't think it is a simple case of, oh, we're animating at 23 frames per second, so let's make the CGI 23 frames per second, because probably if you counted it up, it might not be 23 frames per second, but hey, that's mathematics for people that are far more into this stuff than I am. And the other negative that I have, and this is echoing for something from last week and something that will be mentioned in the comment section, is that Gomah's motivations for all of this still don't feel concrete enough for me. Oh, sure, he wants to be the ruler of the demon realm, but ultimately the reason why everything here is happening, the reason why all this is kicked off, is due to misunderstanding on his part and from Arensu manipulating him. He's doing all this because he saw the Dragon Team as being a threat, so everything that we have happening here, this big action sequence, feels like it could be averted if everyone just sat down and started talking. Why is he doing all this? It's because I was afraid that you guys were going to invade us, so I made a preemptive strike. That's pretty much why Gomah's doing all of this. And had that just been mentioned in the first place, this fight sequence wouldn't be happening, because Gomah, I don't think, is as inherently evil as Degasu and Arensu are. So when we have this big fight, as impressive as it is, it feels like it's motivated less by a case of, this is our character, even just doing this out of a sense of desperation, and more, okay, this is Dragon Ball, so we need to end this with a big silly fight sequence. With all that said, however, I did enjoy this episode immensely. I think this more than makes up for the previous one, even if it is very action-orientated for my liking. We will see what happens with the next one as far as how it's presented and how it's put together, as the title itself hints to, well, an awakening of some sort, a next level of power, a new thing that's going to come into the fore of it. What that will end up being, I don't know. I know there's been a lot of speculation as to what it may end up being, but we'll soon see about all that. With all that said and done, however, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. We got comments from the episode titled Degasu. First of all, we have Big X1 who says, like you, I don't know how to feel about this episode. I like that we're getting close to what looks like a cool fight, but I don't know if Gomah being the big bad, as you put it, or they don't know if they like Gomah being the big bad, as they put it. I put it. Sorry, this is a bit back to front. And, you know, I'll also read the next comment because it's of a similar kind of tract. Then we have Trenty Galaxy who says Gomah is too likeable, even more than Pilaf, and yes, I agree with both of you. I mean, it just feels odd to me that at the end of the day, Gomah is the big bad. He is the final villain in all of this, because I think a great deal has been made to make him just too likeable, even if it is in a goofy Team Rocket Skeletor kind of way. Alright, he probably leans more on the Skeletor side of cartoonish villainy, more so than a Team Rocket or Plankton or anything else of that similar note, so yeah, it feels really odd to me, because this guy is just Ford. He's been presented in more of a comical way than anything else, so to have him be the big bad of it all feels really kind of strange to me. And there is a part of me that ends up thinking, okay, how did they defeat him in the end? There's a part of me that's worried, oh yeah, they just defeat him like any other Dragon Ball bad guy, just blasting him into atoms, which would feel kind of inappropriate and out of place, a bit tasteless, a bit weird, given just how he's evil, but he's not that kind of evil. But we'll see. We'll never know what may end up coming next. You never know. There may be some secret bad guy waiting in the wings for the final 3 episodes. Who knows? We'll soon see about that. But let me know what you thought about this particular episode in the comment section down below. Love it, hate it, let me know, and you will be reacting in next week's video. With all that said and done, however, thank you all for listening, thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!